And I worked afterwards. I mean, I started with the magazine during the studies, and start curating and making portfolio reviews, making workshops and so on.
Yeah, hello, it's nice to see you here, everyone from different parts of the world. I'm Jana. I'm actually originally from Russia, but since 2018, I'm together with Kalin making Dienacht. I'm curator and editor at Dienacht Publishing, and on the website, going through portfolios that we, by the way, always are happy to receive. So if you are photographers and you're interested, you can always submit on our website. And I have background as photography curator back in Moscow. I was an institutional curator for over 5 years and made many exhibitions and also edited several books, but I was mostly focused on curating photography. So for me, making photo books became something very special, and I got focused on this like 2.5 years ago. It's great development for me, and I think we have a bit different approaches, though we agree very often and also disagree as well very often. So somehow complement each other in the workshops, photo book making workshops that we mostly do offline, yes, and now also we have a series of online workshops that we're very happy to share and to do together with the Fuchs, which we also discovered not that long ago, and we're happy that during this difficult time some new initiatives appear. That's a good sign. We're going to survive.
Yes,
so,
we are happy to support, and we just started the project in April 2019, so we are almost a year old, or 2 years old already. So yeah, and the situation in this world push us to go for this stuff from offline. Of course, we prefer offline. As many of you, I believe, we prefer the offline and tangible things like books, and the meetings are much better in person. But yeah, thanks for joining.
Yeah, in the meanwhile, I actually really miss meeting people in real life. But yeah, I'm glad that you are with us, and yeah, let's start talking about dienacht and what dienacht is. So dienacht means the night, and I started this project while I was studying graphic design. The idea behind is to show works that are hidden and mysterious, and things that are to show things that are there, but not everyone can see them. Things from like everyday life, but show different topics that they are not so approachable or they're not so accessible. And this is why I started the magazine in 2007. It was a one-man magazine, so I did it myself, just alone. And the idea was to show on the one side, show timeless photography. And it was also a very personal magazine because I used to show just what I liked. And it was a portfolio magazine. So I didn't have like exhibitions or what's going on. So I had some older photographers, also newer works. It didn't really matter to me if it's new or if it's already been shown. So for me, it was all about the mix. So we chose to make it a very personal magazine, and it also make it showed how I felt back then. I'll talk about a little bit about the magazine and then about the books in general that we make. But dienacht consists of 3 parts basically. So it's the magazine, it's the publishing, and it's dienacht lab. And this was the first issue of the magazine, which was published in 2007. As I said, it's very personal, and I started it with absolutely no budget. It was published twice a year in English and in German. And after a while, I published it once a year, and now actually we are working on a new issue, which it's the first issue after, I think, 3 years of small break. In between, there were some different special issues also published. 3 issues with the Ostkreuzschule in Berlin, which some of you might know. 1 special issue with Nigerian photographers, and 1 special issue with Polish photographers, the one with 5 different covers. But this all went along with the magazine. And this is the last issue that has been published. The second part is the photo books. And the very first idea of making photo books is that I really wanted to make something that has its own life. I think for photography and for all of you, or for the people who are photographers, it's a lot about finding a way how to express themselves, and it can be through photography. I mean, just through pictures, but it also can be through photo books. It can also be through exhibitions. So every single work or body of work has it's a medium, and you need to find the right way to promote it and to find a language for this medium. So it's not a portfolio. It's not a work that show your best pictures. It's not a something that it's just to promote yourself. So it's really about finding its own language. And it's I think it's important to choose very carefully every element of the book. I mean, for photographers, the first part is taking pictures, and the second part might be to print out the pictures, and it's also a choice how to print them out. And you need to choose the paper, you need to choose the size, you need to choose if it's glossy or matte or buried paper, if you print it yourself or if you just give it away. You need to choose the frame, you need to choose the color of the frame, or if there's no frame, why there's no frame. So there are always a lot of choices, and it's exactly the same thing with photo books. You need to choose for every single element in the photo book. And I think it's important. And this was, for me, the very beginning, a thing that I think it was important to find the language for every single project and to make very different books. So paper is, this is a huge range of choice, bindings, materials, sound, the weight of the paper or of the book. The softness, is it hardcover or is soft cover? Is it just a zine? You know, so there are always there's always plenty of choices that you need to make. And this was the very beginning, the main idea about dienacht, to find the language for every single project. And the first book actually developed from the magazine. The first book was Dead Traffic by Kim Thu. He's a Danish photographer, and I showed his works in one issue of the magazine. He photographed in Sierra Leone, and he went there for 4 months. He took pictures, and then I showed his works in the magazine, and then I knew that he's going back to Sierra Leone for another 6 months to take more pictures. And when he came back, he showed me his new works. And there was so many good pictures inside in his work that I realized actually this is not a work for a magazine. First of all, it's not journalistic. So he lived there with people in the slums. They were his friends, and it's a very subjective work. He didn't want to say this is how it looks there, but he really wanted to show his environment in his very own personal way. And it means that yeah, I mean, there are rough pictures, and he also he doesn't have a distance. And well, he had a huge amount of really good pictures, and I think this is kind of a turning point for the magazine. I really wanted to show these pictures, and I realized the magazine is not the right medium for these pictures because there are too many of them. And we worked a lot with decisions like paper, of course, but also contrast between different images with associations, left image, right image. What happens in your mind if you see two pictures that don't belong together, but you still see them on opposite pages. And yeah. So this was the beginning of dienacht, which is also at the beginning, it was a quite big project for me. I was still studying, so I was still a student, and was a big risk. But I was so convinced by the project that this is how I started dienacht publishing.
Yeah. Sorry, Gianni says he has a copy and treasure it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been sold for a very long time.
It was 10 years ago. Yeah.
Next year is 10 years. So I started dienacht publishing in 2012.
That's impressive.
Yes.
Oh, it's not. Where's? Yeah. Okay. I thought there's another book coming. Anyway, this is the first book that we made together with Kalin in 2018, and this is by an Indonesian photographer, Muhammad Fadli, and he made an amazing story about Indonesian motorists who turned Vespas, or more specifically Vespa engines, into incredible motorcycles. So these pictures that you see on the screen are actually motorcycles that can drive around Indonesia, which is actually not legal, but they still do somehow manage. And there are many of them, and they are all made by hand in completely different ways. They are adorned with skeletons, they're made with some metallic parts, with a lot of tires. So something on the left right corner is also a motorcycle. So they might have up to 100 tires. They can have skeletons and all sorts of decorations. And this is a very DIY story. Though the pictures themselves are very clean, they're shot on middle format, so they're very quiet. They need a lot of space. That's why we made a decision to have a clean layout at the beginning, to have this kind of classical approach. And this is a hardcover linen book with one picture per page. But then we also talked to Muhammad, and he said that he would really like guys who belong to this community, who apparently are not very rich guys. They would like them actually to be able to access the book somehow. Well, the book is not very expensive, but it's still expensive for the people from this community. And we came up with an idea of having a special supplement or an index at the end of the book, as you see in the right bottom corner. And this is a supplement that shows basically the same pictures, but in a bit different way in terms of layout, and also has a lot of captions telling the stories behind these guys. So where they drive, what is the story behind their motorcycle, how they succeed with it, because there are also contests for the best by design, and how do they manage to live like this. And the supplement is actually distributed, I don't know its fate by the moment, probably it has already been distributed in Indonesia. We printed 1,000 copies, especially for Indonesia, for the supplement to be just distributed for free there, and actually shipped it there. And this was a very good example for us of like, it was a kind of desire and a new task to make, but it brought us to a very nice kind of artistic decision, which actually a lot of people who actually like the topic and like the book, they really like the newspaper. And they sometimes just wanted to get the newspaper, because you can also take out the papers and reshuffle this and play with it a lot. Yeah, and also it has, I think you don't see it, yes, on the first page, we also added a set of original stickers from the community. So Muhammad sent us the designs of the stickers made by the guys in the community, and we printed them, and they're also part of the book. Another book that's actually was shortlisted for Paris Photo Aperture Award, I made quite a lot of years ago. Yeah, and this is a book by Katarzyna Mazur, a Polish photographer. The book is called Anaconda, and Anaconda is the name of a female fighter in Berlin. So in Berlin, there was a kind of revival of female fight clubs. This is a private club, so these fights are held between women in private flats. And just there are spectators who come to have a look, and this is a closed community. And what's special about the book is that the paper is not white. It has actually flesh color, because there is a lot of flesh and body in the book. And it has this special, as you can see, bumps, yes, embossings on the cover and inside the book, to somehow make it similar to the bumps and kicks and smacks that actually are predetermined by the fighting itself. And also around the book, there is this strap, yeah, you see it on the right, which also is somehow alluding to the way women or fighters, they wrestle with each other, they hug each other. So I think it's a very nice example of kind of very small publication. I think it was just 100 copies, right? 200 copies. It was, of course, sold out very fast after being featured. Yeah.
Yeah, so this presentation is not necessarily chronological. Just want to say Nocturnes was the second book I published, and also was studying back then. It was a huge project. It was with 6 different photographers, which were part of photography group called AM Projects. And actually, I asked them if they can imagine doing a book together, and they say yes. And it was very clear from the beginning that it's not going to be just one book with 6 photographers, but there will be 6 different books, because every photographer has a different style and a different technique and different way of taking pictures. The topic was Nocturnes, and this was the box with 6 different books. If you put it in the right order, you can also see Nocturnes on the spine. And there was a kind of booklet around the slipcase, hardcover slipcase. And every single book has a different paper. For example, the first guy here in top right and bottom left is it's a very glossy paper. Aaron McElroy, Essa von Plon from bottom right has a very thick and also structured paper. Sometimes there are also different bindings. There's this thread binding, there's a glue binding. There is also a big poster which you can fold out, one of the photographers, because he used to show his pictures when he made exhibitions. He used to have a lot of small pictures next to each other. That's why we decided to make this big poster that you can fold out. I think it's like around 50 by 70 centimeters. And also Daisuke Goda, who has this very thin paper, I think 40 grams Japanese binding. And there are small features in the book, like there's this booklet on the cover. Inside the booklet, there's the imprint and a little text about the book, more like a poem. And another thing, which you don't really realize unless you know about it or you read about it, is that Nocturnes, so the typography on the cover, is phosphorescent, so it's glowing in the dark, basically.
While you telling about the books, just a question: how did you approach selecting these projects, especially from other artists? Like first 2 books, the first book, which is about this community, and the second about the fighter. How did you approach selecting them? It's
how I find them, or
yeah, how did you find them, and how did you decide to publish exactly these works? Was there an idea behind of your selection at that moment of time?
I mean, now when we select projects, now we talk about it, the 2 of us. Before, it was just gut feeling, basically, and I think I'm very instinctive, very intuitive, and it wasn't something that I like really thought over. So I was interested always in this kind of hidden things, like also the Wound Fight Club in Berlin. It's kind of half legal, you know, it's not really legal, and also the motorists in Indonesia. It's also like kind of very special community in a way. It has different nuances. It has like on the one side there are really great ingenious Vespas or like motors, you know, and the other side it's kind of funny idea, but it's still a huge community there, and it's very local, so it's kind of exotic in a way. So it's, but yeah, no one, like not many people know about it, although it's so big. And so I think I'm very interested in, as I said at the beginning, about things that are hidden, that they are there, but you don't really see them every day. And in terms of selection, I think there are different ways. I mean, sometimes I ask the guys from Nocturnes if they just want to collaborate because I saw them on, I guess, Facebook. I don't know. Sometimes people apply, so there's not one way.
But with the Rebel Riders, it was in Malaysia that you saw at the festival, right? Yeah, sometimes we also find people on workshops. So we do this master classes, these workshops for photo book design. With editing, sequencing, and design of a photo book, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes we also find people on the workshops, and I found Fadli, Muhammad Fadli in a workshop in Malaysia.
Yeah, thank you. You answered my question, yes, and I see that it's both a gut feel and your interest in hidden things. So I'm just asking because many people are always interested in how to approach publishers, of course, how to cooperate with them, and what is are the criteria of choice. Yeah, regarding the workshops, just
we can talk about it a bit at the end of the presentation. I mean, how would be the criteria? Just keep the question in mind.
Sure.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So this project is not. Excuse me.
Yes, please go on. Thank you.
Yeah, so the project is not like a classical book, as some people would say that it's a classical book. It's a very small print run. It's just 40 copies, but it's made out of different prints. The title of the project is 1520 to 1521, and it's the year when German artist Albrecht Dürer traveled to the Netherlands. And the photographer Claudia Eschborn, he went his path and he took pictures of places that he traveled to. And so she would use two different cameras. One is a Polaroid one, which are the small prints, and one is the big large format camera. And she used to do small series of 2 pictures, 3 pictures, 6 pictures of the same place. And that's why also for me, it was quite clear that I won't show it in a book, because it doesn't make sense to just show 6 pictures on a double spread.
But it's a book.
Yeah, so for me it's a book, but some people say, and I see it and say, yeah, it's actually a box with prints, but actually it works as in terms of storytelling. I think it works as a book. We also have a text in it, and she built boxes herself by hand, and yeah, it's a very small print run. And in general, we have very, very different print runs. I think the smallest one is 10 copies and the biggest one is 1,500 copies. So, and everything in between.
Mm-hmm. This is a very subtle book by a Russian photographer, Ekaterina Anokhina. It's called Inner Mongolia, but it's not called this way because it has something to do with Mongolia itself, but because it is inside anyone who can see the void. It's a quote from Victor Pelevin, and as you might probably notice, there is a subtle difference between the 2 books in the picture. The left one is the first edition, which was printed on gray paper, which is somehow similar of the mine, and the second edition was printed on a different sandy paper, which is somehow similar to the sandstorm. So this could also be a nice idea if you would like to print I don't know, a second edition and somehow enhance it in this way. So the pictures are really grainy, and they don't need a lot of details. That's why actually printing directly on a colored paper was a very nice decision, and the pictures actually got something to it. So they got this sandy feeling, this desert feeling, or this coal mine feeling. And apart from the pictures and the book, which has a very simple staple binding, there is also an envelope, and this envelope, I have the book here, is made of glassine paper, and it was important that this glassine paper actually has a sound. So somehow you can, when you make choices about the book design and the materials, you might also consider the sound of the book and the feeling of the book. This book actually also is supposed to be very light, very soft. And this sound is also somehow belonging to the universe where this book is. And all the imprint and the small text and everything that you might want to learn in terms of facts is printed on the envelope. And the book is completely devoted to pictures to speak for themselves. The next book, which is probably the most sought after dienacht book, at least so far, it's by a Chinese photographer, Ren Hank, who passed away a couple of years ago. And it was published together with the Ostlicht Gallery in Vienna, actually basically a catalog for this exhibition that was held there several years ago, maybe 5, 6, something like this, yes. And it is actually conceived as a set of unbound posters. So this book has no bounding, just this small banderole that you see here, which holds together the whole book. But then you take out the banderole and you get a huge book, which is 40 centimeters high, like this. And it's unbound posters, so you can take out every poster by itself, and there are spread pictures, full spread pictures, and there are half pictures that are vertical or horizontal, and somehow all pictures turned out to be of a very similar, very centered, well-centered composition. So you can see that actually these pairings in the book, they merge inside each other. So it was turned out not only to show Ren Hank's work, but also to somehow recontextualize it because of this merges of one pictures inside the others. It was not meant to be this way. It was somehow a discovery in the process of making it. Yeah, so you can see those kind of amazing pairings that turned out to be like one half of the picture and another half of the picture, or one full vertical and another half of the picture. This book is by a Ukrainian group called Shilo Group. It's called Chronicle, and it is a book about conflict, about the revolution in the Ukraine, but actually there are pictures from sort of 3 periods. It has 3 parts: the period before the revolution, during the revolution in Kiev, and after the revolution, Donetsk area. An interesting experience was with this title of the book. You see that it has burns, and it's made on purpose. It is laser engraving, and Kalin really wanted to have this elements of fire, elements of conflict to be seen from the very beginning. That's why the laser engraving had to be made very, very slowly, so that you could see the fire patterns. Otherwise, if you just burn through the paper very quickly, there is the very precise and neat burn, but nothing else. But for this artistic purpose, it was made very, very slowly. And when you open up the book, actually, you can smell the burning. So this is the first part of the book, which is printed on yellowish, kind of old-fashioned, old Soviet paper. Pictures from Kharkiv. This is the second part, which is the revolution itself, and is printed on glossy black paper without any borders, because somehow it gives you a feeling of a very a sense of presence inside the frame without any details, without any frames needed, as if like maybe you're watching a TV and you're totally immersed in the scene. And the last part is this aftermath, which is actually a continuing war in the Donetsk region. And you might not see it at the moment in the picture, but the paper here is also different. It has this small kind of drizzles, dust, particles, somehow alluding to something that has been destroyed. Yes, that it is full of destroyed particles, the paper itself.
This is a much lighter book, useful advice for photographers. It's by a Latvian photographer who did very funny, a very funny project about how to take pictures and how to take pictures, and of course with a you know, in a way as a joke. But he did these pictures. I think it was an exam, like when he was studying photography, and he made this project, and his teachers were like, what is this? And then he said, yeah, I mean, this is what you teach us actually. So what's right and what's wrong in photography, but everything is like very humorous. Like, for example, my favorite picture is this one with the clouds. It's better to photograph clouds when there are clouds, and there are plenty of this kind of projects in the book. And the idea of making this cover is that it's a gold standard. It's a new gold standard for photographers, and it's pretty small size. It's also it was quite cheap. Now it's sold out, but it was like 12 euro. So everyone can afford it, and you can hang it around your neck, and you can check anytime, you know, when you need it. So yeah, it was a small little project, which is a little bit different than dienacht books, which are more like, you know, as you said, dark and shows the hidden. But I totally love this project. This is one of my books. I'm also a photographer. I usually make small zines or books or handmade books out of my projects. This is a very small edition of 20 copies, completely handmade, hand-bound, printed. It consists of two parts. First part is the cover part, which are, I think, like 8 pages, and it's printed black on silver paper. And second part is are just small photographs which are glued on the gray paper. So these are original photographs. And since you see these elements, this grass on the photographs, I also decided to have this small piece of grass inside the book. So at the end of the book. So it's very lo-fi in a way. It's very handmade, but it's been, yeah, it's a kind of, I don't know if you call it like artist book or something like this.
And the title is?
The title is Tia, which means animal.
And is it with a pencil or?
Yeah, so everything is handwritten.
Mm-hmm.
This is another book of mine, one of the last books I published, and it's printed on black paper with golden risography, and also the title and all the text, which is not much, just name and title, is handwritten, and it's also hand-bound with this wire. And it's a very strange book actually. It's very so I saw this technique on a market, and I didn't know that you can print also gold with Riso, and it inspired me to do this book actually. I thought I want to see really strange things out of my selection of my pictures printed in gold. So it's a kind of, which is a kind of contrast in a way. And there's also a small, actually there's two prints hidden inside the cover. You can see it on bottom right. So the cover is double. It's kind of Japanese binding. And there are two prints inside the cover. And this is the last book we're going to show you. It's by our last book we published, Christopher de Bethune. It's a Belgian photographer. It's his third book that we published with him. And this one is printed with silkscreen. The cover is silver silkscreen on dark gray paper. And it's a very personal book, very soft book in a way, with small things inside, like the small booklet, which is printed on silver paper. And there's also a small print inside, which comes with every book. And I think it's a very warm project. It comes from the heart, and I think you can feel it throughout the book. And these are actually the projects that I like most, things that are personal, and you can feel them that they are personal. And yeah.
It's amazing and impressive. My question is how much time it usually takes for you to go through from the idea to the finally published project. Can you evaluate it somehow?
No, I think it's very different. I think it's sometimes, especially when I work with my own projects, it can be really overnight. So I start in the evening and I work like a couple of hours and then it's done. It just comes comes automatically in a way. Sometimes can take its process. So it's also very different how you work with photographers. Sometimes they say, okay, here are my pictures, do whatever you want, I trust you. Sometimes they want to be involved. Sometimes it's, I make a suggestion and they say something. Sometimes it's like I make a suggestion, they reply, make another suggestion, then I make a suggestion, then they make a suggestion. So it's really completely different. There's not one way of working, I think. And now since we also work together, we also discuss a lot and we also don't agree on things, but we also agree on, I think we mostly agree on things. Yeah, now it's also it's actually good that we can somehow exchange. And yeah, we have a lot of ideas at the beginning, and you need to narrow down and to see what's the best for the project. So not necessarily what's the greatest idea or what's the, I don't know, the most fancy idea, but what's the best for the project. I think this is a very basic thing when we make a book. It's form follows function. So it's no use to have a totally fancy book which has nothing. I think it's super important to have to make sense. What I said at the beginning, it's always a decision, and it needs to make sense why it's done the way it's done.
Yeah, thank you. It's frankly impressive and unbelievable. I can't, imagine for myself to make a book overnight. So it looks like you have no hesitation at all. So how it's possible really to decide on this, to pick photos and not to, not to have any concerns about this and go for publishing. Yes, it's interesting.
Actually,
impressive.
I think with Kalin, it's also quite often that he works on a lot of things at the same time, and also thinks about his projects, and somehow it grows inside him, in his brain, like it grows, but then it goes out of his head, then it's very fast, So then he kind of collects the decisions inside his head about the project, and then, or we discuss, and then when it's time to put it on paper, it's already kind of fast, yeah? So when it's already on paper, it's already you went through all the hell inside your brain with the doubts and stuff and discussing, yeah.
But
yeah.
But I think it's also, I mean, Jana she's more like thinking over, and she's like giving a lot of, why like this and not like this. And I also kind of more intuitive, I would say, and that's why I think it's good. We can work well together, because it's like now it's kind of mix of how we work, how we approach things. And I think also it also makes a difference if we make a book with someone else, or if I make a book with my own pictures. I think when I make a book with my own pictures, I don't need to discuss. I just do it. So it's much easier in a way.
That's great.
It also much harder.
Yeah, sorry, just to mention, there is some messages in the chat. You can see them too, and so on. And yes, for everyone, we use the chat.
You can't see them because we're.
You can stop sharing the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, because yes, we see this. You mentioned probably for the talk, discussion, question, it's better to stop sharing the screen. Okay.
For the messages. Mm-hmm.
So the third part of dienacht is dienacht Lab, which consists in our workshops, curating, mentoring, and so on. And we'll walk you through it just very shortly.
Yeah, let's talk in a couple of minutes about the workshops in the background while we're speaking and sharing the links and the discount for everyone who joined in the talks, 10% discount for the upcoming events in March. So you can find them on the...
It's in the presentation, so we'll get to it.
Okay. So yes.
So dienacht Lab is, as I said, curating. I won't get into the depth of it, but I also started curating while I was doing the magazine. I started making exhibitions with artists from the magazine. Sometimes they used to be single exhibitions in different places in Germany or in other countries, also in Luxembourg. Sometimes group exhibitions with photographers. And one thing that I didn't mention about the magazine, it's mainly about photography, but it's also about illustration and graphic design and arts in all forms. So for example, this was an exhibition with photography and illustration and also graffiti. But the main thing is photography. And also photo book exhibitions. This one is from Myanmar, which was a couple of years ago. And now I'm working for the Museum of Applied Sciences in Leipzig to make a photo books exhibition, which will be in November this year. So right after Paris Photo.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it will be anyway, but hopefully also open for public. And it's going to be, it's going to go on for around 5 months. So we also have hope to make different events around it, like talks and workshops, and maybe also like fair, small fair, but it's in the making right now.
Yeah, and of course the big part of dienacht Lab is the workshops that we give. Of course, we used to give them live, and actually dienacht workshop map spans across really almost all continents. So a lot in Europe, Germany, Austria, Denmark, Spain, France, Slovenia, Romania, Russia, Turkey, also Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nigeria, Mexico. We've been supported a lot. And also we had big online program with Armenia. We haven't reached Armenia yet, but hopefully we will with the offline workshop. So we've been supported a lot by Goethe Institute, which is always great to support in all German initiatives abroad. And what we do at the workshops, usually dienacht big workshops, is we make a dummy, which is a prototype of the book. It usually takes from 3 to 7 days, depending on the circumstances. I will just go through some pictures from our workshops. This is the latest one in Romania, in Bucharest this summer. This was in Copenhagen also last year, right in the middle of the pandemic. This was the most emergency workshop ever, because actually when we reached Copenhagen, they closed down the border the next day after we reached it, and people started to panic, but we somehow still managed to go through the whole workshop. With one participant actually had to fly away because she was from Bangladesh, yes, there, and the country was closing, but it still, I think, was a very nice, fruitful workshop. And this is one of the dummies made there. I mean, you can see a lot on the website as well. So this is a kind of complex binding, which is bound and unbound at the same time. There's also a nice dummy made there. We just show the back of it because it's dummy with an audio. So this is the system which is installed in the back cover of the book. We totally bind the books all together at the workshop. There's some pictures, some dummies made in Mexico. This is in
Slovenia, Maribor.
Okay, yeah. It's at the very nice Lanu Festival in Spain, next to Barcelona. So this is the audio dummy as well on the right, and the other dummies made there. Yeah. So this is what we usually do offline, but now we are here And we came up with a series of workshops that we would like to do together with the folks. And we have 2 masterclasses, 2 workshops to offer. The first one is a group portfolio review, which was scheduled for the 13th of March. And it is, as we see, a great way to get feedback on your work if you feel stuck at any moment of like editing or understanding if the project is completed or what's missing or which way to finalize it, like should it be a book or an exhibition or how it can look. Any kind of questions that one might have about his or her own work could be discussed at this portfolio review. So we are ready to give advice from both our sides on how to develop, how to finalize the project. And also I think it's an amazing thing about it is that it's a group portfolio review. So photographers sometimes don't want to agree with something if it's somehow a very different maybe idea or very fresh or somehow destroys the initial wish. But when fellow photographers actually support it, also give their feedback, I think this always somehow reassures you that some things can be changed. So this group session actually will also give an opportunity to hear quite a wide feedback from also fellow photographers. And we hope to have maximum 8 people at this portfolio review. And there is also an option with the viewer if you're not ready to participate with your project, but you would like to follow the discussions and maybe hear something that you can apply to your project or just interested in how to analyze, approach a variety of different projects, which are always very versatile at the portfolio reviews.
And the second part of the program is the editing and sequencing workshop, which is going to be in 2 different sessions, like in 1 week after another. And the idea is to find a kind of language for your body of work, if you have a body of work. And so there will be some theories about how to approach editing and sequencing in photography. And there will be one-to-one critique session and a group discussion again. So I think it's we also noticed in when we do our live workshops that it's so good for this group talks actually to hear what other people think about your work, because you have an own opinion about how you see your work, but actually it's very personal to you, but you are not your public and we are your public and the other photographers are your public. And I think it's important to see how they see your work. And there will be an assignment on the first session for the next session, so an editing and sequencing assignment. And on session 2, we'll review the work ahead and we'll make some notes, and also we'll make a new suggestion if it's needed of editing and sequencing of your work, and we'll talk about it. We'll review your editing and sequencing, so you know, okay, how, what's good, what might not be not so good. And there will be a collective feedback session, and then we talk about our suggestions about editing and sequencing.
Yeah, what I noticed actually at this usually offline workshops about making a book is that editing and sequencing is such a crucial part of it, and it is probably most challenging for the photographer when you have a body of work and you have all the pictures on the table and you just don't know how to approach it. And this, as I noticed from at the workshops, that this is where the photographer really needs guidance, and we worked out some approaches to editing and sequencing with a lot of examples that also we already held this type of workshop, and it proved to be guidance that can be really applied to editing and sequencing of different projects. Max, would you like to add something about?
Yeah, of course, I would like to add. As mentioned before, I'm trying to gather some like permanent partners for these programs or some separate single events, but the key idea is to cover different topics. For example, previous workshops were more about the technical aspect of the photo book zine design. This both, from my personal point of view, are much more about the concepting, developing the story, developing the project itself, the approach to your work in general, right? The first session is totally about the kind of portfolio, your project. The second is much closer to the book publishing, I believe, but still, as I get it from guys when we discussed it before, and as you can see it now, it looks like another opportunity to just figure out what kind of the next step for your project is, whether it be a book or an exhibition, whatever. So it's my point about that. Yes, please keep in mind, I have posted in the chat and I will do this once again. Everyone who joined in the chat has a link, has a promo code right now for a 10% discount. It will also sum up with the current early bird discount, and all these discounts we are covering from the books, especially this one 10%, aside from our kind of commissions. So the same as with books, artists and authors are never, their earnings are never hurt. So yeah, feel free to support. We'll be happy to see you on these workshops during March.
So
Yeah.
we'll stop the presentation, and if there are some questions, we're happy to answer. Maybe if someone wrote them in the chat but would like to ask them live, this way it would be, I think, better. Well, we're a bit lost in the chat. We don't know.
Yeah,
where
of
to
course.
start.
First of all, I would go through the questions which we have, and anyone, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask out loud. This is a Q&A where we can talk, and it's okay.
Sorry, can I start? Is that okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, look, one thing that I think was quite interesting that you mentioned is about, you know, working with other people's work and then your own. And I'm just interested in what are the particular challenges that you have in terms of editing and sequencing a book of your own photographs?
Of my own photographs.
Or of your own work, yeah.
Yeah, I think I need to feel that a project is ready somehow. So I think it's not useful to force it to think that okay, I've done this body of work and now I need to publish it. I think it's very difficult for me to start working on a project if I cannot visualize it. So I think it's for me it's important to be able to visualize it. And in terms of editing and sequencing, I think it's this is in terms of my own photographs. I think it's not such a problem for me because I know them as just a flow, and I think it also requires training, I would say. But I think it's so it's then I would say it's a muscle. So you need to train it to learn it somehow. But I think I have a kind of, I don't know, good feeling of how it might look from outside. And I think, of course, if you make a project, you make it for yourself. But I think in general, you also need to, if you decide to publish it, you also need to think of your audience. So how many people would be interested in your project or why? So I think in general, not just with my own pictures, but I think in general, it's very important to keep a project open for interpretation. So don't give 20 directions, not to say what it's about exactly. I think it's so why I buy books is because I can connect with the works in a way. So I don't buy them because I want to know a very specific thing, but I want to be able to interpret them in my own way. And I think this might be quite challenging to when you work with your own pictures. But I think, as Jana said before, I think when I make a book, it's growing inside, so I cannot really, it's not a like conscious process, I would say. So it's growing from inside, and then at one point it just explodes somehow, or just goes out, or it turns into a book, but it's not very conscious.
Yeah, I think in our duo, I'm the more conscious person, and I'm always trying to make sense of what he does, like to put it into system, to try to make logic out of this and systematize. And so that's how actually we came up with doing this editing and sequencing workshop, because when Kalin is editing, he's just editing and sequencing, and I was just trying to make sense out of this kind of subconscious process that's happening. And it was actually also very interesting for us to put it into certain type of guideline, yes, to try to imagine that it can be systematized, which is in the end is a gut feeling. It has to feel right. This editing and sequencing in the end should feel right, but before that you still can rely on certain approaches that we tried to work out. And we had this workshop with Armenian photographers just a while ago, and somehow we were really happy to see that you can apply it somehow, some real guidelines. But in the end, it should feel right.
Well, thank you for that. And it's funny, actually, I was actually on another Zoom call yesterday evening with looking at a project and their process.
Was not really good at the second. Could you repeat that? There was something with connection.
Yeah, sorry, no, I was on another Zoom call with another photo group last night and looking at a project and how it kind of evolved. And this photographer was also quite kind of intuitive in that, you know, she hadn't really thought it through very much. It just kind of happened, but it definitely had a real kind of fascinating stuff. And I just wanted to say, I think your books are really interesting. It's such a broad range of approaches.
Thank you.
So I'm glad I found out about you.
Great, we're happy. We're happy we can reach out more people. Thank you, Max. We see some guys that we know that were at our workshops in the audience. Nadina, you'd like to say something? Or anyone? Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, there was another question from Theo. When you have to choose a book for publishing, what is more important for you? The photos, the story, or the materials of the book?
I don't understand what it means, the materials of the book, but in terms of photos and stories, I think it's I think it's not one or another. I think it totally depends on the project. I think if the pictures are good, you can make a book out of them, as long as it's not a portfolio, as we said before. So I think it's it doesn't necessarily need to be a strong like a strong story. Sometimes you just have personal pictures, and I think it's enough. If they are strong enough, it's enough. And on the other side, of course, a strong story is great, but it doesn't work without good pictures. So I think concept is not enough. And I think that, I mean, at least I am a very visual person, and Jana probably also, because I mean, she also worked as a curator, I think, which you didn't mention. She worked as a curator. I did. And so we are both very visual persons and people, and I think it's it doesn't work if we just like the concept or the story, but we don't like the photography in terms of visual language. And usually when we get a project, or when we start to work on a project, we don't have materials, so it's not. It's very rare that people really send some, I don't know, like finished dummy and say, yeah, do you want to publish it? But yeah, we develop this throughout the process. So it's not that we have the material there and then it's great material, but it's developed and starts from the story, or starts from the pictures, or starts from the shape of the book?
I think as far as we are concerned, when people apply for online publication or publication in the magazine, I would like to show their body of work. It's not necessary for us to get a sequenced and edited body of work. I mean, you can, you need a strong photography that you can highlight and enhance with the book format, but you cannot turn kind of bad photography into good photography with the help of any kind of medium. You know, we don't like to over design things. We don't like kind of fancy designs, or we would like to support. And since we are very visual, and I also used to photograph, so we really like the photography. We really like to want photography to be the highlight of the book, and so like book to be like the framing and the enhancement of this. But the work itself is the most important. And if it is not, if you submit, for instance, and it's not sequenced in a good way, or maybe the editing is not that precise, it doesn't matter for us. I mean, because we can change it. We cannot change not that strong photography, right? But we can always resequence, re-edit, and make it into another form. So I think the photography itself is the focus, is the most important thing.
Okay. If you see the chat, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Any more questions? We still have power, probably, energy to stay
Yeah,
here.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone staying for the whole hour with us.
Yeah, also just noticed that Kim Tu is also with us, which is the first book we published, 2012, Dead Traffic. He's also watching. So
yes, really exciting.
Kind of.
Thank you for joining. It's very interesting for me. You know, I feel great about these connections when they happen, and when Gianni is a kind of a friend for me, and he says that he has one of the first books from you. Yeah, excuse me.
I've never been on Zoom before. I don't understand how it works.
Hey.
No, you're online.
Oh wow. Okay. Hi. It's strange.
Amazing.
Yeah. Hi.
Amazing to see you.
It's nice to see everyone. It's a weird format.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's now the only format that works in these days. So I actually also really miss being around people. And I mean, we work from home anyway, or we do the books from home. So the only possibility to get out is workshops or meeting or going to festivals or fairs. The last fair was in Paris 2019. So we are kind of going crazy here.
Yeah.
You're running circles. Yeah. So I think it's important to somehow to have this feeling of, I don't know, getting together and being a community in a way. But yeah.
Yeah, we usually all spam on Facebook and via email newsletters, so it's much better to talk and see people in the face. And yes, excuse me who is just bothered with emails for the latest days, but we must to promote whatever we do. Yeah. Any more questions?
Hi, good evening. I just have a quick one. You mentioned previously about materials, paper, printing, and I have a question regarding printing. Do you have a printer with whom you work usually, or you kind of you source different printers depending on the project? Let's put it this way. Thank you.
Well, we work different printers. When I started with the magazine, I used to work with the same printer. Yeah, then I wanted to have, on the one side, have more like different partners, and on the other side is also just because we print different ways. So we we print, if there's a bigger print run, we print offset. We also print digital when it's a smaller print run. And we also print Riso, so which is, for example, we do this in Leipzig because there's a great Riso printer, or also around Germany, or silkscreen. So it totally depends on the printing technique. But I think what's important for us is that we can go there and check the printing quality, if it's, especially if it's offset. So we can also change something. Yeah, but no, we don't. Right now, we don't have one printer.
Yes, it's a big thing for everyone, especially who is starting and trying for the first time to decide and choose on paper and a technique, and you don't really understand how to make such, for example, prints on a black paper with something like this, with gold finish, how much it costs. So this is a very useful information.
Yeah, I think in general it's different things are new. I mean, this photo publishing books are photo publishing world is kind of new to many photographers in a way, not just because, I mean, of course they like photo books, but they buy photo books, but I think making a photo book is very different. And there are a lot of, we also notice in our workshops, there are a lot of like questions, okay, how do I do this? Or how do I use this? Or where do I go? Or how can I choose the paper? And this all questions that we discuss in our workshops, for example, or I also make like online mentorings, and we also discuss about it. So how to approach someone. I mean, many people just don't know how do I approach a printer? How do I approach a binder? Or do I need to approach both of them? But for example, when we print, we work with printers, and they have their book binders there, so we just ask for a price, and they would ask the book binders for a price. So we have contact only with one person in the end. So yeah, I think it's challenging when you want to self-publish, or when you want to publish a book, the first steps. And it was the same for me. So when I started with a magazine, I had no idea what to do, how to do anything. So I was still studying. I was like in second year of my studies, and it was like more or less learning by doing. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I sell? Where do I sell? How do I print? And so on. But yeah, that's also part of our guidance in a way.
Thanks everyone for thanking us.
Yeah. We always stay longer than expected, and this is a sign that things go in an interesting, exciting way. Sure.
You go ahead with questions if you really do have them. Just don't hesitate.
Yeah, I have one. Do you have any projects right now, book projects at work? And how do you manage this when you are limited to leave home? Or
I mean, we always have a lot of projects, and I mean, yeah, also working right now on different projects actually, and it's also difficult to find the right printers right now for as far as I'm concerned, and I'm also working on my own projects in my mind until, but yeah. So I mean, I really enjoy making zines or small books or handmade books just with my own stuff. Not for, I mean, there's usually small print run, but I don't know, I just used to photograph a lot, and it just needs to get out in one form or another somehow. So there's no time when there's nothing to do actually.
Yeah, it just has become much more challenging in terms of financing this because of the circumstances, and yeah, so since we always try to fund the books that we make ourselves, it has become really, really challenging. So we could have already published 10 books this year or something like this, but it's also about how to manage this financially. So we're trying to search for grants and different possibilities to make it happen.
Gabriela says, we want to see what's in my mind. Mm-hmm. You'll see.
Yeah. Just a second, Barrett. Something with connection, we can't hear you well.
There's no sound, I guess.
Yeah.
So we can't hear you.
Barrett, please try again to unmute yourself. Probably something wrong with your microphone.
No, it's very bad. Maybe you can ask a question in the chat.
Kim, excuse me, I will mute you, okay? Because we have some troubles with connection. So Barrett, please write your question to the chat. Yeah.
How do you define the number of books to be printed? You mean the print run? Yeah, the print
I
run.
believe so.
Actually, it's a tough one.
It's a feeling.
Yeah, it's a feeling. Everything is a feeling. Everything is intuition. I think some books have more public than others, and especially the handmade books. I mean, you cannot make a handmade book in addition of 1,000 copies. So I think it's important to I don't know, to find out what you can do, or what you can do so it's still fun for yourself, you know. And yeah, of course, sometimes we also printed of some titles much more than we would sell, just because they don't have a public, or because we are not advertising people, and we are not good at advertising and marketing and so on. But yeah, it's difficult. I think it's all about, I mean, since we have many topics which are not like
mainstream.
Yeah, not so mainstream. We don't print so many copies of one book, or if we do, then we need to lower the price so it's still affordable to many people. Yeah, it's also a question of, depends on how you print, because for example, if you print offset and if you want to have a certain offset quality, then you need to print more copies. I think it starts with 300-400 copies. If it's digital, it doesn't matter so much, but then would be very expensive to make just very small, little amount of copies as well. So it's always a balance, and it also depends on how the book is made, how the book is like produced, what kind of features it has. And it's also about not making compromises in terms of materials. So what we learned through the whole process from the moment we started publishing photo books is that actually everything is possible. So you can do everything you want. It's always a question of money. You know, you can also you know, pay people to make 1,000 copies of handmade hardcover with glitter on it. You know, it's just a question of money. But everything is possible, and you can make books with wooden covers. You can make books with metallic cover. You can make books with concrete cover, which I've seen before. So in general, everything is possible, and this is also what we try to do with our books, to start really from scratch, from zero, and not to ask ourselves what wouldn't go, but what do we want and how do we get there.
And it's also somehow more fun to make more books, like to print, let's say, 200 copies of this book and sell it out, and then kind of deal with another one, than to print 1,000 copies of this book, and it will take time to sell it out, right? So it's kind of the feeling to work with new books, to engage with fresh, exciting projects, and somehow to have quite a lot of titles. Yes, kind of smaller titles, but still, I think there's this tendency.
Yeah, I think also what we didn't mention before is that actually we print also a lot of books which are, in terms of economical questions, they are totally not economical. So in terms of selling, you know, like super like expensive books to produce, but you cannot sell them for a lot of money because they are just, I mean, they don't look expensive, so to say, yeah. So especially at the beginning, it was, for me, it was more important to show different works and to show more photographers, even if it's a small print run, even if it's not economical, even if it's not about making money, because, you know, if you sell books to a bookstore, they will also want a percentage, and photographers get their amount of copies. So in the end, after you sell, let's say you have 100 copies of a book, which it happened many times, you're left with nothing in the end. So it's not that you earn money, you don't lose money, but you also don't earn money, and especially not if you have a kind of, I don't know, company, you know. So I just used to make a lot of projects just for the sake of making them, just because I really loved this project and I wanted to see it turning it into a book.
I think we should have another section, like fourth section, like book charity, dienacht charity, or something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, charity crowdfunding. There is a question regarding crowdfunding and another one. Yeah, please have a look.
Yeah, if you consider crowdfunding, yes, we did crowdfunding a couple of times, and we also do in the future with the project that we plan now. What we try to do is, I mean, crowdfunding, if you know, it's a tricky thing, because if you really fail, you know, you fail publicly in a way, so everyone will know about it. What we try to do now is actually what we always try to do is to offer pre-orders. So to say, if you pre-order this book, then you get something. You get a small print, or you get it signed, or you get something that no one else will have it after the book is published. And in this way, you can get some funding for producing the book.
Yeah, so there's another question, I guess, yeah. Would it be possible to say something about the balance between telling the viewer about the concept story and still not explaining too much? Would be interesting to hear your experiences. So I think it's like a good detective story, you know. You give hints, or kind of you give directions. You can show the person the direction in a way where to go, but still keeping the interest or the space for the person to relate personally to it, because I will never be able to understand completely what this picture meant for you, what idea you put behind it, and the full story. But as long as I can relate to it and somehow understand the direction of your thought, that's enough for me to get attached to it. So I think it's important to be clear, yeah, but not, especially with the texts. So I would avoid explaining very directly what it's about, but like giving a direction, which direction my personal experience with the book should go. I also find it really exciting when I go through, as well as reading a book, you know, if you know the story from the very beginning, or you watch TV series and you know what happens in the next series, you'll get really bored or annoyed or whatever. The same with the photo book. You want to get a feeling that you somehow follow, but you're still have enough suspense, you know, to continue. And when you reach the end, you get a catharsis, because yeah, for you get a feeling that you got it in your own way, and it doesn't matter if it's exactly or whatever it is, but if you got it for yourself, that's a huge catharsis that I get from a book.
I think it's also quite difficult to explain it in a very theoretical way. I mean, when we explain it during workshops or during these portfolio reviews, we show some examples and we show okay, why does it work like this? Why does this book work? Why does this book doesn't work? I mean, it's still theoretical, and you still need to find your own language. And also, I mean, we try to find this language together in workshops, but I think if you have some examples, it's much easier to understand it.
Right.
Okay, any more questions?
Okay, I think that's it. No.
Probably yes. I don't see anything in the chat. Anyone, if to ask out loud, please. do so. Yeah, it's already like 2 times more than expected, probably, but I know that it always takes at least an hour. Again, my links and promo codes over there to make sure everyone is aware of it. Sometimes I feel like embarrassed about this, and as Jana mentioned, as you are not marketers, I frankly would say with my like 12 years of marketing experience in different areas that the product itself and the content inside it, it's a better marketing always. Whatever you say in the advertising doesn't work. So as soon as the book offer some experience, even if you don't touch it, but see it on the web, it works much better. The look, the feel, and the story around. So yeah. I believe we are done. Yeah, as there are no more questions. Okay, it was really nice to see you all here. Thanks a lot, Jan and Kalin, for your amazing presentation. The books, stories, and answers. So,
Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for asking questions, and thanks, Max, for inviting us.
Yeah, for making it fun. Thank you.
I'm happy to do so. Please keep in mind we have a record on the Facebook if anyone would like to share or watch again. Yeah. Okay. See you soon, everyone. Yeah, as always, I stay here until the last person leave. Just in case I'm being on mute.
Okay, people are leaving, so we'll say bye.
Yeah. Gabriela wrote, hoping to see you in Arles. It could be great. Yeah, everyone dreams about this, I believe, these days.
We actually plan to go to Arles if it's going to take place. And Paris.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. I stopped the live stream. I stopped the record.